Number 7. Andrew Charles Beard. On October the 2nd of 2020, 24-year-old Texas mother Elisa Ann Burkett was shot and repeatedly stabbed to death at the Carrollton apartment complex where she worked as a manager. The police later detailed how the day after her killing, officers found an abandoned vehicle in an alleyway that matched the description of the car used in the commission of the brutal crime. Investigators discovered blood-coated hair inside the vehicle, as well as traces of a fake beard with dark-colored makeup on it. Detectives had initially gathered from eyewitnesses that the suspect involved in Burkett's murder had been an African-American man. However, upon finding tracking devices on the cars of both the victim and her ex-boyfriend, Andrew Charles Beard, the authorities began to surmise that the perpetrator had actually constructed an elaborate disguise to cover his tracks. It was subsequently reported that 33-year-old Beard had disguised himself with fake facial hair and blackface before carrying out the deadly attack as an act of revenge for Burkett being awarded custody of the couple's infant child. The victim's family had reportedly warned the police that they believed Beard was going to kill her and chase her to make sure the deed was done. The man was charged with cyberstalking using a dangerous weapon resulting in death, as well as discharging a firearm during a crime of violence, to which he pleaded guilty in June of 2022. Facing the possibility of 2 life terms in federal prison, Beard's sentencing hearing was scheduled for October the 6th of 2022. Number 6. Ben LACOMBA. 46-year-old beautician and mother of 5, Sarah Wellgreen was last seen alive at her home in Kent, England, on October the 9th of 2018, only days before her son's 12th birthday. After disappearing without a trace, Wellgreen was officially reported missing 2 days later. Local authorities launched a widespread search effort that stretched into nearby woodland, a section of the River Thames, and land near the Blue Water Shopping Centre. Very little progress was made at the investigation's initial onset, as Wellgreen's car had been left at her house and there hadn't been any transactions on her bank cards. However, detectives eventually began zeroing in on the victim's ex-boyfriend, Ben LACOMBA, with whom she'd been embroiled in a heated custody battle at the time. He was brought in for questioning but declined to speak throughout the 7-hour interview. Despite the man's refusal to cooperate with the investigation, the police began to build a case against him after gaining access to CCTV footage from Wellgreen's neighbors. While LACOMBA had claimed to have been in bed at the time of his ex's disappearance, surveillance video captured his car leaving the premises at approximately 2 a.m. His tires were also found to have been caked in mud, leading police to theorize that he'd driven it off-road at some point that night, perhaps to dispose of the victim's body. In December of 2018, LACOMBA was formally charged with murdering Wellgreen and was convicted of the crime in October of the following year. He was consequently sentenced to 27 years in prison. As of the latest updates on the matter, Wellgreen's remains still hadn't been found. Number 5. Jody Herring. In 2015, Vermont woman Jody Herring plotted revenge against the individuals she deemed responsible for her being stripped of the custody of her 9-year-old daughter. She set her plan into motion on August the 7th, when she used a stolen hunting rifle to gun down social worker Lara Sobel as the latter was leaving work at the state's Department for Children and Families in Barr. It later emerged that the woman had also murdered her aunt, Julie Falzerano, as well as her cousins Regina and Rhonda Herring, for their alleged roles in the child being taken away. Upon being taken into police custody in connection to the shootings, Herring reportedly showed no remorse for her actions and even laughed and joked with the arresting officers while covered in her victim's blood. She eventually pleaded guilty to 1 count of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder. At her subsequent sentencing hearing, Herring was permanently separated from her child after being given a life prison term with no chance of parole. Number 4. The Goldman abduction case. In 2000, Sean Goldman was born in the United States to an American father, David, and a Brazilian mother, Bruna Bianchi. The latter took Sean on a 2-week vacation to her home country in the summer of 2004, however. After the expected duration of the trip had come and gone and the mother and son still hadn't returned to the US, David became suspicious that his wife might have had ulterior motives in bringing their child to Brazil. It subsequently emerged that the woman had abducted her child and was refusing to bring him back home, setting a bitter years-long custody battle into motion. David vowed to fight for his son's return to the US, leading to a series of lawsuits and countersuits in both American and Brazilian courts. In 2005, a judge in Brazil ruled that while Sean had been taken from the US illegally, he would remain in his mother's custody. Bianchi then divorced David before marrying Brazilian lawyer João Paulo Lins S. Silva in 2007. While giving birth to another child the following year, Bianchi passed away and Silva was then granted custody of Sean after reportedly neglecting to inform the courts of his wife's death. The case garnered international attention in 2009 as David redoubled his efforts to reclaim custody of his son. Finally, in December of 2009, a Brazilian federal court ordered that Sean, by that time aged 9, be returned to his father in the United States, which he ultimately was on Christmas Eve. Number 3. TRANISA Watts. At about 7 p.m. on April the 18th of 2022, Texas woman TRANISA Watts went to a Richardson Starbucks to meet with her estranged child's paternal grandmother regarding custody rights. Earlier that day, Watts had reportedly gone to 52-year-old Kentoria Goodson Edwards' home, but the latter and Watts' 3-year-old daughter, Jordan, weren't there. She thus set up the meeting at Starbucks where, according to the resulting police report, she opened fire shortly after Edwards' arrival with Jordan and another adult family member. Watts then attempted to flee with her daughter but was intercepted by Richardson police officers who'd responded to the scene. Edwards was rushed to the hospital where she ultimately succumbed to her gunshot wounds, while Jordan was reportedly left unharmed. Following her arrest, 23-year-old Watts was held in custody on a $1 million bond, pending the commencement of her capital murder trial. Investigators subsequently gathered that Edwards had held custody of the child for the majority of her life, given Watts' extensive criminal history, which included multiple cases of assault and theft. The woman had sought to force her way into the child's life by eliminating the individual entrusted to her care, but instead faces the overwhelming likelihood of spending the rest of her life in prison. Today's topic was requested by Scott Ruiz. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comment section below. Number 2. JIVON Brown. Shortly after 10 p.m. on July the 5th of 2017, Baltimore police were dispatched to the 2600 block of Rose Lawn Avenue. After receiving reports of a shooting, responding officers reportedly came upon a male gunshot victim, identified as 24-year-old Darrell Owens, lying face down on the ground. Owens was taken to a hospital where he was ultimately pronounced dead. A second victim, a female who'd been shot in the leg, was also hospitalized for treatment before eventually being released. In the ensuing investigation, police discovered that the shootings had been precipitated by an argument between the victims and 27-year-old JIVON Brown, with whom the female had previously been in a relationship. The pair reportedly had a daughter together and were in the midst of a vicious dispute over custody and visitation rights. Brown's ex-girlfriend had gone to his apartment, reported as the eventual crime scene, in order to pick up the child, but the man refused to release her. A verbal and physical confrontation subsequently broke out, which culminated with Brown retrieving a handgun from inside his residence. He opened fire upon returning to the front yard, where his ex-girlfriend and some of her friends, including Owens, were still fighting with his new girlfriend. During the resulting court proceedings, Brown's defense team argued that he'd fired the fatal rounds in self-defense, while the prosecution sought a murder conviction in connection to Owens' death. In August of 2018, the defendant was acquitted of murder but found guilty of manslaughter, as well as several gun charges. For his various crimes, Brown was sentenced to an aggregate total of 40 years behind bars. Number 1. The Pike County Murders. On the morning of April the 22nd of 2016, the police in Pike County, Ohio, received a 911 call regarding 2 dead bodies found inside a home on Union Hill Road. Officers were dispatched to investigate, but prior to their arrival, the 911 caller discovered 2 more bodies in a second home on the same property. A short time later, a third crime scene was found with 3 additional victims. Then shortly after 1 p.m., another 911 call was made to report the discovery of an 8th dead body found in the nearby village of Piketon. The police soon learned that they'd stumbled upon the aftermath of a targeted attack against a Pike County family. Each of the slain individuals, 7 adults and 1 teenager, reportedly belonged to the Roden family, leading investigators to believe that the murders were premeditated and carried out by someone known to the victims. Autopsies conducted by the Hamilton County Coroner's Office in Cincinnati determined that all but one of the Rodens had been gunned down in an execution-style manner, while some of the bodies displayed bruising, indicating that they'd been beaten as well. The ensuing police investigation became the largest in Ohio's history, as it eventually came to encompass not only the shootings, but also the presence of marijuana growth and cockfighting operations at some of the crime scenes. Authorities ultimately identified members of the Wagner family from South Webster as the perpetrators of the Roden murders. It emerged that Edward Wagner had previously conceived a child with Hannah Mae Roden, one of the shooting victims. The latter allegedly refused to share custody of the child with Edward, writing in a 2015 Facebook message that he'd have to kill her first. The Wagner family thus spent months devising a plot to murder Hannah and her family to gain custody of the child. To ensure the efficacy of their plan, the Wagners allegedly forged custody documents which stipulated that the child would be released to Edward in the event of Hannah's death. While many charges levied against the Wagners were dismissed or are still being processed through the courts as of recent updates, Edward faced the brunt of the legal consequences for the killings. In April of 2021, the man pleaded guilty to a myriad of charges, including 8 counts of aggravated murder. He was sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. Would you rather adopt 5 kids from a troubled youth home or have to live with both you and your significant other's parents for the rest of your life? Let us know in the comments section below.